Becoming a parent changes everything. Your body, your mind, your relationships, your identity. I'm Katie, a mum of 3 boys and your host of By Your Side. Each week, I'll bring you honest conversations with trusted experts and real parents. No fluff, no shame, just the science and stories that help you feel seen, supported, and confident in your choices. Whether you're newly pregnant or knee-deep in toddler chaos, we'll explore everything from mental health and sleep to identity, guilt, and what it really means to raise a child today. Hit follow now. Join us for new episodes every week. We're right here, by your side. I am very excited to introduce our very first podcast guest today, and his name is Dan Berman. He is a child development expert with nearly 20 years in new parent and early years support. Dan serves as the President Emeritus of the United States chapter of the International Association of Infant Massage and is a certified educator in infant massage. He also is the founder of Baby Step, Be a Better You, support the educational process, a free professional learning page for new parents and educators. He also works as the Director of Development for Our Kids Read, a non-profit helping turn young non-readers into enthusiastic readers. Dan is a passionate advocate for babies, the benefits of early intervention, positive touch and early literacy, as well as the importance of early father and male engagement. He is an incredibly busy man, and I am so delighted that he could join us in what has got to be a very special first episode. There are some gold dust moments in there that I think every parent needs to hear. So I hope you enjoy. You are my very first guest on the By Your Side podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
And I'm very excited to have that honor. So I'm ready for questions and a conversation whenever you are ready to go.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I suppose I reached out to you because when I think of baby massage, it took me back to before I even had my children. There's a phrase in the UK called yummy mummies. And I don't know whether that translates to the United States.
I'm not sure, but tell me about it and I'll see if there's a parallel.
It was kind of the mums who had money, who didn't have to work, could take their babies, and it was all very lovely, and they had their babies in a circle and they're all massaging, and it was just, very, very nice, but it just seemed something that wasn't accessible to everybody.
And we'll talk about kind of my journey into infant massage. And one of the things that I did prior was I would teach some of those classes. Here we had, used to be called Mommy and Me, but we worked to make it called Baby and Me, so it's more inclusive for all genders of parents, but it does tend to be, the moms who don't have to work, who get to stay at home and get to do their play group at a certain time and then have the lunch with their friends and then, have maybe a nanny to take over for them when they need a nanny.
Yeah, absolutely. And that isn't the parenting style for the majority of parents. That just isn't their life. But what I found really fascinating is the science and the evidence and the research. And I think what kind of drew me to you and said, oh, I've got to speak to you, is that obviously you've kind of been on this journey and you're kind of really waving the flag for infant massage and the difference it can make and how accessible that is. So can you talk to me about your journey and why you are where you are?
So I've been in early childhood development, early years. So some of the language we'll talk, diapers versus nappies, I'm here in the United States. So I grew up in just outside New York City and then did my college in Boston and in Nashville and then eventually moved to Florida. And during each of those steps, I worked in different child care centers. Actually, my first one was the school I went to when I was a child from 2 to 5. I got a job during the summer and I just really loved working with kids. And around 2016, I started a job running a new dads program called Who's the Man for dads and their 0 to 18-month-old babies. And one of the things that we found was that dads specifically are very cautious and anxious about physical touch with their babies. Either they think they're going to break them or there's a stigma that it's not something that men do. But it's so crucial for dads and for moms to have that physical touch. And that's something that through my experience in research, and I just knew was a thing, but not the directive about infant massage being professionalized. And I had a colleague, and she was certified in infant massage and was already leading classes for the parent organization that I was running my program through. And so she helped navigate me to Infant Massage USA, which is the US chapter of the International Association of Infant Massage. And all the links for these, I'll make sure that you have.
Yeah, we'll put them so everybody
Perfect.
can access them.
And so I was a grant funded program, and I was able to do one training per year. And I chose infant massage to do that training. And I was the only man there, which was not unusual for me. But the thing I loved, it was a real intensive course. I've taken a lot of, college courses, professional learning courses. The way that they structured their training for educators. So it's all, people who want to do this, whether it's professionally or just additionally as a service, very research based, very evidence based practice. But the thing that actually hooked me most was the use of permission. They talk importantly about getting your baby's permission for
that's
things.
So interesting.
So you don't have to actually get, there's not going to be language for response. But babies will tell you if they like something or they don't like something.
Yeah.
They are not shy. So in terms of infant massage, if you just go and start touching, this is where we get into, good touch, bad touch, positive touch, nurturing touch. Just making sure that, you show baby your hands and you say, it's ready for massage time. And then you kind of rub your hands together with oil or with lotion, depending on what you want to use.
Yeah.
And that actually forms a cycle connection in the baby's brain to seeing the hands and the rubbing and thinking it's massage time. And they will either, naturally react calmly or kind of stiffen up. So you want that calming. If you see they stiffen, it's not time for massage. And that's already starting a parent-child dynamic. That's not just, I'm the parent, you do as I say, because I'm the adult. There are times you're going to have to, be the adult and, pull that tantrumy child out. But in general, you want to be, in this, back and forth dynamic to build up that bonding. So that was really nice to me.
Yeah, I think I just want to kind of pick up on a point there because I think that's just so important because it's so many parents, you told, trust your intuition, trust your judgment, read your baby. And parents are usually just so exhausted or so much on. And the natural reaction is, I don't know, I can't, I don't know. Whereas actually what you're saying is this helps with some of that reading your baby. And that sense of permission is just so powerful, isn't it? Because it's saying, this is what we're going to do next. And you're looking for, and you're learning how your baby's communicating with you rather than just leaving that communication until your baby's crying. Because parents just think, oh, you told communication is crying, but it's not actually. What you're saying is this gives that opportunity to start to read your baby a bit more. And those bodily cues, not just facial cues, it's just kind of what's going on for them. So that's just so powerful.
And so, there are so many things that we can circle. I might have to come back on, just general baby talk. But in terms of infant massage, that's a great point that you make. And so you learn that maybe your baby likes getting massaged only at the end of the day after bath time for sleep. Maybe the massage that you give, they like it right when they wake up in the morning, right when they wake up from nap, because it gets their body, moving. So it's definitely not massage like we think as adults, or like getting all that tension out and just de-stressing from the world. But there's definitely stress, but it's not, again, pressing, trigger points and different things like that. Yeah. And so infant massage, going through the training, one of the great things is that it's about communicating to the parents how to massage their baby. That's the key dynamic. Yeah. It's that parent or, guardian. It's about having the more people in a child's life that, have that time early on. And so infant massage is best age-wise between about 6 weeks, maybe even less, 4 weeks. and about the time where their head can turn and everything in the world is more interesting, which comes in like the 6, 7,
Yeah.
8, 9. It really does vary by child, but when they can flip over and kind of move themselves, but you find that they get in a routine. And so for me, I got certified in 2016 as an educator, and I just kind of put it into the dad's practice of the classes. Like we just took 2 minutes of the hour play group to, calm. And we talked about how if you massage, calmly and slowly, that'll help, with reducing the anxiety and getting ready for sleep. You want the opposite, as we talked about, right when they wake up, you do it quick. And again, the spots that you do that on might vary. The baby might, really like their back rubbed real slow before bed, but they like their chest rubbed real quick when they wake up. So it does vary. And some babies like their feet and some hate it. You said, getting to know your baby's cues, both in physical, how they react to the massage, and also how it goes through their day. And so beyond the dad's class, I was recruiting to that and struggling to find, new dads because there's not a hangout place like the Yummy Mommies, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I went to a lot of those kind of classes. I went and tried to pitch them to get the, dads to come, which was not my goal. I really wanted it to be a self choice, but you do what you can. And then I also started just giving free infant massage sessions if the parents would sign up for the parallel free dads program. So I was just kind of doubling my time, but at least I was going where babies were. And while I was teaching infant massage as the educator, I learned a lot of these struggles that parents go through that everyone thinks, I can't do this. And you
Yeah.
can. But when everything is going wild, it's really hard. And you recognize that if you're stressed, usually because of sleep deprivation, is number one. And why are you not sleeping? Because the baby's not sleeping. Well, you know what the number one benefit of infant massage is? It's helping babies to get to sleep better. And so it releases, some of that anxiousness. It creates that dynamic, especially if, you do it after bath time, your baby lets you,
Yeah.
you do it in a calming way. They start to associate. I take my bath, I go to sleep. Routines are really hard for babies, and we really don't want to shoehorn them in. You need to let their schedule go, but their brains are developing faster than they ever will. You get about 97% of your brain development within the first 3 years. And within that, it's the first 100 days that actually has the most neuron connections forming. So if you're doing this, each day, or, one parent does it in the morning and one parent does it at night, or there's only one parent, again, just the benefits alone will help, but it'll naturally create a routine if your baby likes it. And they'll start, when their hand moves, if you're doing the normal hand, they'll do this. Kind of like you see babies with sign language who, that age of simple signs, they can do the same thing for a massage. If you're consistent with it, they learn that that's the ideal. And then they will all, no matter how much they love it, as I said, give up on it when they can move their head around the rest of the world with interest.
But what was really interesting was, but if you set that up as part of their, not a routine, and it's not about getting baby into, you must do this in this, but it's almost like those sleep cues. So they talk about as adults to have certain kind of processes you do before you go to bed helps prime the brain ready for your sleep. So what you're saying, I'm guessing, is exactly the same for the baby. That actually, if you know that it's bath time, massage on the back, if that's what they prefer, they kind of know that's the checkpoint. So what you're saying is that they're learning that communication as well, so that when, the rubbing the hands is massage time, that I guess as they get older, they're learning that actually if they're ready for that, if they're getting tired, then they can tell you by rubbing their hands together, that's what they're wanting, which is amazing.
Absolutely. And speaking of older, I mean, even though they lose interest for that little while, if you've created that positive association, like I have parents who, years later have said, like, my 10-year-old just comes over and just kind of like goes like this, like, and sits in front of me because they want a little shoulder massage. And it's like, but that as a parent, when your child wants nothing to do with you, if you have teenagers, it can make all the difference. The second really major benefit is with constipation. So here there's a lot of colic discussion when a baby is not typical. Is probably the right word. And we'll kind of get into some neurodivergent different typical atypical. But in terms of this, colic is really just an undefined, the baby's kind of just hypersensitive to everything, and everything just kind of, doesn't work properly. And babies react to that by crying, because that's how they know to express. And there are times where crying is okay. Crying is not always negative. You can't always be knowing when it's feeding time or they just getting attention. But in this case, that's highly anxious. And then babies read your cues as an adult. So if you're anxious and tense, they'll be anxious and tense. And that it's for children as well. They really are signal dependent in that way. And I know it's hard, especially if you run home, you get home from work and you've had a hard day, you've been yelled at because you're behind on what you're doing because you didn't get your sleep the night before, and the cycle just continues. Well, what is kind of discovered through more anecdotal research, and I'd love to see it fleshed out, is, and it's not the most enjoyable research I'm sure to do, is working through constipation as the marker for colic. And so infant massage, you do a lot of kind of strokes with the legs. You can do, there's a specific stroke actually for colic and constipation through infant massage called I Love You. So you make the hand going the way that the intestines actually go. And actually, if you go on the infant massage website, they have a little shop, and there's a little shirt that has
the direction.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's cute because you kind of get backwards, like when you're doing things. But if you kind of just make the stroke of the letter I and then the letter L and then the letter U, it just kind of naturally moves the process. Now, one thing I highly recommend to parents is if you do this, make sure that you're not doing anything crucially important for the next 6 hours. Because I did a class and told parents about this, and it works. And, it's not, again, it's not something that you enjoy, but if you're a new parent and your baby hasn't gone in 2 days and all they're doing is crying,
discomfort,
all you want is something. And, the comfort for your baby, so it really does have that natural benefit. Because again, you kind of naturally calm the system. You do it when the baby is not in distress. Because again, you want massage to be a positive experience. But just naturally doing it when they're calm, realigns their little tiny body can be adjusted. That's one thing that parents fear, especially if they are really rough. Realistically, you're not going to do any damage, but you can gently shift everything going. And so for that purpose, really beneficial. Though, again, like I said, I had one parent come back to me and they said, we went on a car trip and we did it like right in the morning before we went on this long road trip. And I was like,
oh, that's not going to end well.
That was a poor, I know I wasn't going to say it, but like they knew, they were like, that's a poor choice. But it worked. And so while you're doing the infant massage, you can keep the nappy on, you can take the nappy off. It really, again, depends on, if you're going to the upper legs, you might want to take it off. It moves out of the way. You don't want it to be something where you have to stop and take it off. So if it's bath time, you don't have to put it on yet. Maybe you do your massage and then you put on, a lot of parents like to swaddle their babies. So you don't necessarily need, you might diaper before, you might nap it before you swaddle, you might not. Really depends on the parent. And so that's a user choice. I do recommend if you go nappy, often you have boys, put a washcloth on top, just in case of any accidental fire hydrants.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And because you said about oils or creams, or what would you, so say either after bath or before, or whenever you do it in the day, what's recommended? Because obviously in terms of baby's skin,
I like scentless oil. just whatever the cheapest, not like vegetable oil, but, kind of, it depends where you are in the country, you
Yeah.
can get
I was
different
going to
things.
say, vegetable oil, you might end up
Number
smelling
one,
like a French
most,
fry.
and again, the baby won't care.
Baby
The
doesn't
whole
care.
point,
Yeah.
if you find whatever you're using breaks out their skin, then, stop using
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
But most important for me is scentless. And it's something I wanted to loop back to with sleep that's not specifically massage related, but scent is really important for babies. And an infant massage trainer colleague of mine, just released a blog on scent memory. And
Oh,
so
okay.
scent is something where, baby's been with mom for, 9, 10 months, and they are now, really separated. And so it's not just the womb swaddle, it's things like smell, that as soon as they stop smelling mom, there's a fear of abandonment. So
Yeah.
that wakes babies up sometimes in a startle. So if you just have a piece of clothing, like really freshly
Yeah.
worn clothing of whichever parent the baby is most attached to at that moment, it flips. Don't take
So
that personally. You are not a bad parent if it just flips on a dime.
whichever parent or whichever caregiver the baby is most attached to at the time. And it's not personal. It's just what's happening at that time. It's just so important.
And again, I like things like that I want to share, not be like, well, we got to wait till podcast 7. Every moment when it comes to baby sleep, it is real crucial.
Yeah.
And so I had told a friend of mine their baby was having trouble sleeping, and that worked for them. They put it on the little Roomba vacuum that moves around. You want to put it as close to baby that it won't become a choking
Yeah.
hazard. So, maybe off the side of the crib, again, as long as they're not in reach. But once they can start reaching, maybe on a fan next to, the bed or the crib, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just that little bit. All you need with babies is to buy yourself like 5 seconds for their brain to get past whatever distress signal,
Yeah.
is going on in there. And so in terms of sleep and in terms of constipation and in terms of bonding, those are really the 3 key pieces to infant massage that I take away and I try to let parents take away. And then again, from there, it's their own journey. Most parents will parent in a style that's either exactly as their parents did because they liked it, or the 100% opposite because they hated it. And their children will do the same. And that's just how the cycle goes. But you can overstep. We're human beings. We can decide that we're not going to. That's how it naturally is. And that's okay. But if you decide that, touch wasn't important to your parents, so it's not going to be important to you, I want to break that part of the stigma. There's nothing wrong with men touching, babies, anyone that's connected to that child. And that's where the permission and the structure is really important. I don't come in and try and take that baby to show infant massage. When I'm training, I use a doll. So that way, I can model, but each one has their own. And sometimes I'm lucky and there are 3 or 4 people there. And I'm like, you can most of them say like, no, she's mom's here. I'm going to just watch this time. It's like, and that's okay. I'm never going to push because again, it's getting that connection. Baby will sense if you're anxious to touch, they're not going to want to be touched.
Yeah.
Same thing with being held. If you find that you're giving infant massage in the bedroom and that they just stop liking it, doesn't mean that they now hate massage. They might just, be tired of that space, go to a different space, or vice versa. They get into such a connection routine that if you start doing it, in the living room when you're used to doing it, in the bedroom after bath, they're just confused. They're like, this is not my setting. You go in for an adult massage and they've changed all the wall colorings and now the chair is on the other side and you're just a little off. And then you have to calm yourself. So even though the massage is not for the same principle, babies are, just smaller humans and they are developing real quick. They are not empty vessels. They have likes, they have dislikes, they have different things. And some babies are born neurodivergent. And that's a really hard thing for parents, typically, more than the children. The children don't know that they're, not acting in a way that quote unquote they should. But for a lot of parents, getting facial cues, a smile, is one of the real bonding connectors early on. It releases just so much serotonin in both anyone, pretty much anyone who sees a baby, and they smile at you. That's what's happening. It's a little drug. So, and it works because babies are fragile and they need, as many people in the world that are going to want to look out for them. And so in that case, you're really just trying to create that connection and doing so at a time where for you as the parent, it works in a calm, manner. That's more important than squeezing it in. So if you were behind and you actually have to take out the trash and your baby's about to sleep, but you realize you forgot it. It's like, don't wake them up.
Yeah.
Give them
We haven't done the massage yet.
You start getting in a routine too, and something's working. So all of those kind of factors, and I recommend you'll have my contact, so I'm happy to connect with parents. There are trainers who do infant massage classes that you would look up through the International Association over there in the UK. But I know you have an international audience, so we have international educators all over. So I would recommend checking it out. And if you don't have classes, you can, press the button to say, like, I'd like it here. And you hope, that somebody wants to make a trip.
I think I just want to circle back round on the kind of the neurodivergency, because I think it's made a really good point about there's, we talk about parents looking at their children and smiling and you don't get that smile. You don't get it for quite a while. Then if a child has neurodivergence, then you may not get it for some period afterwards. But I read something that was really interesting. It was from a neurodivergent parent who felt so much pressure to be mirroring the facial cues of her baby or trying to pick up on those. And that was a real struggle for her. But actually, it was that finding the sense of touch or being close to baby actually gave her that sense of bonding that didn't put that pressure. And you talk about that anxiety level, and it's not a good space to be doing it from. But I wondered if you had kind of any experience of working with parents that might not be neurotypical, but that have found some kind of support through being able to massage their baby.
I have had that experience, and that's a real joy. So especially for fathers, kind of in that setting, I found a lot of success because, mom has had 9 months to bond with the baby. For dads, it's really not real, quote unquote. And it they're there during a lot of the prenatal, hopefully. But for them, usually it's not real until the baby's born or until they get that first smile. And if they never get it, they start thinking that they're a failure as a parent. That goes for both genders, but you're already a little bit more detached. You don't have the breastfeeding. You don't have, some of the natural, times. And so infant massage and touch, it's a great way to kind of just break through that. And again, it's finding where baby likes to be touched to get different reactions. So they are still a baby. They still are going to enjoy certain things and not enjoy certain things. Yeah. The way they might express that is different, but that parent, you'll learn their language of expression immediately. The fluency rate is so fast because it has to be. And so maybe you discover that the back of their ankle gets a little scratch, and that might make some sort of little, facial smile. Maybe it's not a smile. Maybe it's a physical, but for you as the parent, like all you need is a little tiny,
just a bit.
Maybe you do the constipation one and that baby farts and then they giggle. How it happens. And so it's really about, again, even if you're not getting a smile or a laugh from the massage, it gives you more information about your child. And that's really what you're searching for, especially when you're either you as the adult and or the baby. I've had ones where it's both parent and baby, are neurodivergent. And, you have, again, you're just trying to find that shared language and meet that baby where they're at. It's always the responsibility of the adult to meet that child where they're at. And so you can't spoil a baby. I want you to realize, like, you can't hold them enough. You can't massage them enough. If they are willing, there's not enough attachment you can give to an infant. When you start getting older, you can definitely spoil children, but you cannot spoil a baby. Every moment that they get can infinitely, grow their world and their sense of confidence and, acceptance and willingness to, let people in. All those things, can be adapted as you get older, but that formation starts, from day one in every interaction that they have, even if it seems like a meaningless moment to you, and that they're not going to remember it. That's not the point. The point is that it somewhere deep down, will be remembered and ingrained and then shape the next and the next and the next. So for parents, typical, atypical, neurodivergent, I think touch is, again, a great barrier breakthrough for that. And then discovering where you as the parent match up in different ways. And that works in temperament, and that works, hopefully in sleep time. You get a little more sleep, you can time. So that kind of answers, you can't spoil your baby. So give them that love.
That's been amazing. I had a list of kind of key questions that the By Your Side community, and you've literally ticked them all off from, I'm a dad, can I massage, or, what do I do if they're constipated or if I'm anxious? You've just literally covered it all. But there have been so many gold dust moments that I just really hope that parents can take away and just realize that, as you've said, it's about meeting your child where they're at, and you can't spoil a baby. I think that's priceless. So thank you so much. And I know you're involved in lots of different things, so there's no doubt that we will have you back on the By Your Side podcast. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of By Your Side. If you found it helpful, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Head over to the website for free resources, expert support, and details about the By Your Side courses, created to help you feel more grounded, informed, and less alone in your parenting journey. And if you're looking for a space to connect with others who really get it, you'll find all the info about our membership there too. You'll find the link in the show notes. And if you're enjoying the podcast, it means the world to me if you would leave a quick review or share it with a friend. Until next time, we're right here by your side.